Hello, hello, hello. Jordan Sheridan, TGIF. TGIF. Timalists, I Papa Jordo. What up, what up? Cello says, what's up? Vinny says, hey now. Rob, hello, Mr. Jordan. Hello, Mr. Jordan. It's good to see you all. It's good to see you all. 5 o'clock, East Coast time, and it is a busy day. Busy day, even though we're heading to the weekend. Busy, busy day. And as I speak, I believe Stacey Abrams, who I have been following up on that election in Georgia. Obviously, it has been an election theft. Let's call it what it is. It's been an election theft. Stacey Abrams is going to be making an announcement, I believe, as I'm live. So I will update you on that as we have it. Obviously, certification of Georgia's election, I believe, was supposed to be today. I wouldn't call it an election. It's been a stolen sham theft by Georgia's Secretary of State, Brian Kemp, who rigged the election by purging hundreds of thousands of voters who could have potentially voted for Stacey Abrams. It is the height. It's not just voter suppression. It is election fraud. That's what it is. So Stacey Abrams is going to be making an announcement right now. It is either, my assumption is, either going to be her announcing that she is conceding the election or her announcing that she is marching forward with lawsuits. I have made what I think she should do very, very open. I think she should take this and sue as far as she can, because you know what? You cannot normalize election fraud. You cannot normalize elections being stolen by politicians who are in office as Secretary of State and decide to purge voters in order for their opponents to lose. Can't normalize that. So I hope she calls. I hope she takes this all the way to Georgia's Supreme Court. That's what she should do. Now, obviously, that's expensive to bring on as many lawyers as they already have on the campaign. We shall see. So, Jen, keep me updated what's going on with that. If you have a video link of her live, send it to me, and I'll just show the audience while I'm live. And as a reminder to all of you watching, this is a super chat. And if you don't know, I'm going live Sundays now for a special Sunday live stream marathon super chat. Marathon super chat. So I'm going to be live Sunday at noon Eastern. We'll have all sorts of interesting content for you. Ty and I are actually going to be recording a podcast right after I'm live today to show you on Sunday. We will also be able to show you the full interview I did with the chairman of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. I showed you part of that interview yesterday where he told me that despite a federal judge revoking the final permit for Keystone XL pipeline, shocker, TransCanada, the oil company, they're trucking along and they are constructing anyway. So I'll have that full interview for you on Sunday, some other things. I'm going live on Sunday instead of relaxing, spending time with my family, watching Netflix, to raise money. We got to raise money. Thank you, Zachary, for getting us started on the Super Chat. 10 euros, I think that is. Super Duper Chat Sunday, that's right. And as always, before I get to the topics, I want to show you our progress here. We have raised $20,399. Our goal is $50,000 overall. Our goal for end of November is $25,000. So we're not close to our end of November goal. So I appreciate the 318 people that have contributed, not deterring anyone from contributing on the Super Chat. You could do Super Chat, GoFundMe. GoFundMe is preferable because we're not just trying to raise money for the GoFundMe, but we're trying to show more donors to the GoFundMe. Because the more donors we have, then we could take those results and go to potential sponsors that we're looking to get and say, hey, look, we have this base of support that are willing to contribute financially to this kind of reporting and attract sponsors. So that's what we're, progressive sponsors, not corrupt douchebags. So that's the deal. Super Chat, GoFundMe, you know the drill. So I will currently, I don't see Stacey Abrams live, so I'm going to begin with my first topic, and then as news comes in about what she's actually announcing, I'll be able to tell you that. So I wanted to start with the prosecution now of Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks founder. And everyone has an opinion on Julian Assange. To some people, he's a hero. To some people, he's a criminal. To some people, he should be, locked up in jail. And to some people, he should be, there should be statues erected of him. I believe he's a hero. I am an old school journalist, and I need evidence. I need evidence before making claims that someone like Julian Assange or WikiLeaks knowingly worked with a foreign government to take down the United States election. As Rachel Maddow has been breathlessly reporting, as all of these outlets have been breathlessly reporting, that WikiLeaks got their information straight from the Russian government. There's never been any actual concrete evidence to show this, but it was just revealed on accident, apparently, that the Department of Justice plans on prosecuting Mr. Assange, who, by the way, has been the victim of one of the grossest human rights violations probably in world history. He has been relegated to the Ecuadorian embassy in London since 2011, I believe. He had charges in Sweden that were actually dropped of assault, sexual assault. Those were dropped, and he has been holed up in an embassy. There's many reports that he is malnourished, that he is vitamin D deficient, his health has been deteriorating, and they took his information source, his internet, months ago. So basically, they are trying to drive this man crazy and probably try and force him to have dark thoughts and want to harm himself. So that's what they've been doing. The New York Times reports the Justice Department has secretly filed criminal charges against the WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange. A person familiar with the case said, marking a drastic escalation of the government's years-long battle with him and his anti-secrecy group. Top Justice Department officials, hold on one second. Let's see if we have the live stream here. Okay, so, here we go. I'm going to play Stacey Abrams to you.
NATO warnings or chilly weather. We all understand the challenges and the complications. However, this year, more than 200 years into Georgia's democratic experiment, the state failed its voters. You see, despite a record-high population in Georgia, more than 1 million citizens found their names stripped from the rolls by the Secretary of State, including a 92-year-old civil rights activist who had cast her ballot in the same neighborhood since 1968. Tens of thousands hung in limbo, rejected due to human error and a system of suppression that had already proven its bias. The remedy, they were told, was simply to show up. Only they, like thousands of others, found polling places shut down, understaffed, ill-equipped, or simply unable to serve its basic function for lack of a power cord. Students drove hours to hometowns to cast votes because mismanagement prevented absentee ballots from arriving on time. Parents stood in the fitful rain in 4-hour lines, watching as less fortunate voters had to abandon democracy in favor of keeping their jobs and collecting a paycheck. Eligible voters were refused ballots because poll workers didn't think they had enough paper to go around. Ballots were rejected by the handwriting police. Citizens tried to exercise their constitutional rights and were still denied the ability to elect their leaders. Under the watch of the now former Secretary of State, democracy failed Georgia. Georgians of every political party, every race, every region, again. You see, the incompetence and mismanagement we witnessed in this election had been on display months before in the Republican state legislative primary of Dan Gassaway. Counties under the direction of the Secretary of State issued flawed ballots, and not for the first time, and not just in that district. But this time, the mistakes clearly altered the outcome. Representative Gassaway, a Republican in a heavily Republican district, had to go to court to force a fair fight. And therefore, on December 4th, tucked between the runoffs for Secretary of State and the Public Service Commission, for one community, there will be justice in the process. Win or lose, the people in his district will finally have a say. Many of the same Republicans cheered on Representative Gassaway when he filed his lawsuit. But the same ones have grumbled about the time we have taken to gain a remedy for fellow Georgians who faced a dizzying array of bad action, misinformation, and gut-wrenching hardship. But we are a mighty nation because embedded in our national experiment is the chance to fix what is broken, to call out what has faltered, to demand fairness wherever it can be found. Which is why on election night, I declare...
Oh, what the hell? What is that? On your side? No, you're not. You just cut off the live stream. Hold on. How could this outlet just cut off the live stream like that? All right. Stacey Abrams. Let's find it elsewhere. Stacey Abrams. Live.
Speech of concession. Because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. As a woman of conscience and faith, I cannot concede that.
Yes!
But my assessment is the law currently allows no further viable remedy. Now, I could certainly bring a new case to keep this one contest alive, but I don't want to hold public office if I need to scheme my way into the post. Because the title of governor isn't nearly as important as our shared title, voters. And that is why we fight on, and why I want to say thank you. Thank you to those of you who organized your communities and shattered records. More than 1.9 million voters who stood up in this midterm for protecting our public schools, for continuing criminal justice reform, for Medicaid expansion, and for real economic mobility for all of our counties. We won state house races and Senate races, a new seat in Congress, and we put America on notice that change is not coming to Georgia, it has arrived, and you made it so. But those who feared change pushed back. And so we waited for the whole truth of this election, good and evil. We waited for it to come forth. So thank you to those of you who shared your stories, for the tens of thousands of calls into our voter protection line. Thank you for volunteering your hours after the polls closed and for the last 10 days, for driving to all 159 counties and hearing the concerns of Georgia citizens through tears and frustration and disappointment. Because you see, Georgia still has a decision to make about who we will be in the next election, and the one after that, and the one after that. So we have used this election and its aftermath to diagnose what has been broken in our process. Make no mistake, the former Secretary of State was deliberate and intentional in his actions. I know that 8 years of systemic disenfranchisement, disinvestment, and incompetence had its desired effect on the electoral process in Georgia. I also know that we live in a nation where 4 federal judges were necessary to force the counting of the ballots cast in the face of Brian Kemp's opposition to and disregard for their lawful consideration. I know that millions of Georgians, of Americans, of goodwill, and of various partisan beliefs, they are enraged by these truths. Now, in response, you may seek to vent your anger, or worse, to turn away from politics, because it can be as rotten and rigged as you've always believed. But I implore each of you not to give in to that anger or apathy, but instead turn to action. Because the antidote to injustice is progress. The cure to this malpractice is a fight for fairness in every election held, in every law passed, in every decision made. Pundits and hyper-partisans will hear my words as a rejection of the normal order. You see, I'm supposed to say nice things and accept my fate. They will complain that I should not use this moment to recap what was done wrong or to demand a remedy. You see, as a leader, I should be stoic in my outrage and silent in my rebuke. But stoicism is a luxury, and silence is a weapon for those who would quiet the voices of the people. And I will not concede because the erosion of our democracy is not right. Regardless of party, we want what is best for our children, for our families, for our neighborhoods. We may not share the same faith, but we are knitted together by our belief in our potential for more. I will work in these coming weeks to elect John Barrow as our next Secretary of State because he is a man of principle and goodwill who will administer his responsibilities for the people and not his party. I will work to elect Lindy Miller as our next Public Service Commissioner, where she will speak for those who have been ignored for too long. And I will pray for the success of Brian Kemp, that he will indeed be a leader for all Georgians, that he will pledge to fight for the rights of those who disagree with him, and that he will keep his promises, that he will refuse the call of those who see how close this election really was. Because we know that some are going to propose to make voting even harder. They see voter engagement in communities of color and they cry fraud, or they lie about the cost of democracy to justify closing more polling places. I pray he will reject this vicious and tired response in favor of preserving what is left and what is left of our state's reputation for equality and civil rights. But I will not leave it to prayers alone. As I have for more than 25 years, I will stand with my fellow Georgians in pursuit of fairness. You see, I did so as a college student, speaking in the shadow of Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King Jr. at the 30th anniversary of the March on Washington. I did so as Democratic leader of the House of Representatives and as the Democratic nominee for governor of Georgia. And now I will do so as a private citizen, ready to continue to defend those whose choices were denied full expression. Today, I announce the launch of Fair Fight Georgia, an operation that will pursue accountability in Georgia's elections and integrity in the process of maintaining our voting rolls. In the coming days, we will be filing a major federal lawsuit against...
I don't want to be rude, but obviously you got the picture there. So first of all, before I go on a rant, we should say that Stacey Abrams is an extremely classy individual. Whatever you think about her decision, although she's not calling it conceding, obviously she is choosing not to fight on. So she is conceding the election. She's just not using the phrase. But it was an extremely graceful speech, I thought, and it was an extremely classy move. I believe that it is the wrong move, but I'm also saying that as a white person. And as I've learned from Ty, who obviously is our photojournalist, black people don't have the same luxuries as white people. Even though I don't think she should have conceded, I think that, she's looking at it from a picture that she's not only up against the rigged system in Georgia, but as a black woman, she's up against centuries of racism in Georgia. So I will say, in one breath, I applaud her for the grace of her speech, but in the other breath, I think she made the wrong choice, and I'll tell you why. This is bigger than Georgia, and this is bigger than Stacey Abrams, and this is bigger than Brian Kemp. Thank you, Gene, $20 in the super chat. This is a super chat. This is about a rigged country. We don't just have a rigged country economically. We don't just have a rigged country socially. We have a rigged country electorally. We saw it in 2016 because I saw it in 2016. If you read my book, Corporate Con Job, which Jen will put the link in there if you want to read it, Bernie Sanders had the primary stolen from him. It's not always when voting machines are rigged. It's not always when there's literal fraud. It's the whole system. How in the world, again, I applaud her on that speech. I'm not knocking her. It was graceful. But how in the world was Stacey Abrams, she's sitting there saying, I'm going to go back to being a private citizen. This was the Secretary of State of Georgia, who was, while making decisions on running for governor and then announcing his governor, purging voters off the rolls. Stacey Abrams' campaign, and by the way, a little behind the scenes, I spoke with Bernie Sanders' campaign after the New York primary purge, and I said, why isn't Bernie howling about this? I was told that they didn't want to look like sore losers, and he was focused on Pennsylvania. It's not looking like a sore loser when you say, no, this isn't a fair election. No, this isn't democracy. This is elected officials rigging the election for themselves or their desired candidate. If we are told, as Americans and as progressives, that nonviolent protest is the only way to succeed and get them at the voter booth, well, we've been doing the nonviolent protest and we've been going to the voter booth. But if the voting booth is just a symbol, it doesn't actually mean anything because it's totally rigged. It's either rigged by the media who misreport superdelegates to make it seem like Bernie Sanders is like way the fuck down compared to Hillary Clinton. It's either rigged by basically those same delegates signing on to Hillary Clinton before anyone else announced their election. It's rigged when you don't have laws in place that bar people like Brian Kemp or Chris Kobach in Kansas, who did lose, from making decisions about the voting base and who will be allowed to vote in elections that they are running in. Is this a banana republic or is it a democracy? Because you can't have both. Oh no, the suppression of this channel's in the US and Canada, it's everywhere. We are getting throttled. So to all 216 of you watching right now, share the button, press the share button, and make sure you put in your calendar, I will be live noon Eastern time. Noon Eastern time on Sunday for a special marathon super chat. We're trying to raise money. We're trying to raise our GoFundMe. We're trying to get out in the field. So I understand why Stacey Abrams thinks she's rising above it. I understand that there's probably financial considerations. It's not cheap to continue filing lawsuit after lawsuit. They've been filing lawsuits left and right in Georgia. But by dropping out, by conceding, you are giving credence to the fact that this was actually an election. This wasn't an election. This was a democratic theft. This is a democratic theft. I don't care if you're progressive. I don't care if you're conservative. I don't care if you're a MAGA person. I don't care what you are. The only way to actually change this country, other than journalism, which is how I'm trying to do it myself, other than protest, is by voting. So if the strings are being pulled by people like Brian Kemp, and there's nobody above Brian Kemp to do anything, you know what? If Barack Obama was president still, you really think his Department of Justice would have went in and did anything about this? No. No. In what type of democratic system could you have a Secretary of State running for governor and deciding who's going to be purged off the voting rolls? That is the definition of a conflict of interest. That is a definition of rigging an election for yourself. And hey, look through electoral history. Who's generally the biggest race that's purged off the voting rolls? Black people. It happened in the 2000 election. I think 85,000 black people were purged off the rolls in Florida. It's happened during the 2016 election. It happened in the 2018 midterms. Where Greg Palast has done great reporting. I ain't mad at you, Greg, but you haven't responded to me. I've been trying to interview you. Start that. This is the definition. It's not just racism. It is what authoritarian dictatorships do. Russia does ballot stuffing. Other countries like it, basically, it's for show, the election. but it's rigged from the start. But this was rigged out in the open. And you know what? You know what? You know who also is to blame for this? The Democratic Party. Where was Tom Perez before this election sending out emails that we need to start protesting outside the Georgia Capitol? After Rolling Stone reported that 340,000 voters were purged off the voter rolls by this man, Brian Kemp. Where was the Democratic Party? Where was Nancy Pelosi? Where was Chuck Schumer? Nowhere to be found. Nancy Pelosi was sitting there doing fundraisers with big bankers, big oil, and big pharma, and pushing centrist candidates. And Chuck Schumer, if you read the reports on what happened with Facebook, was apparently busy intervening on Facebook's behalf as they defrauded their users. I don't give a damn. Facebook suppresses me to all hell, so I don't really care. So, again, I say this humbly, and I say this in mind that I am white and I am not black. So it is harder for black people than I. It is harder for black politicians than a white politician. And I'm sure there are a lot of circumstances in the background that we don't know of, including financial costs to keep going. But she should have, in my view, and I think there would have been funding to do it if this is what she called for, she should have sued all the way to the Georgia Supreme Court and then all the way to the Supreme Court, even if she lost every step of the way. Naturally, Malika says she was probably threatened and doesn't have enough money. That could be true. I happen to know elected officials that have been threatened in communities that I've covered. Their kids have been threatened. I don't say it publicly because there's no reason to put those elected officials or their kids at risk. Mitch Devi, every live stream, try to come up with one good news subject, Jordan. Thanks. I'll try that, Mitch. But let's not bury our hands in the sand. Heads in the sand. This is not a, rainbows and sunshine kind of situation America's in. Income inequality is exploding. It's exploded under Bill Clinton. It exploded under Bush, in addition to the wars, Obama, and now Trump. People are living paycheck to paycheck. Half the country's poor. So if you want good stuff, if you want nice stuff, go watch BuzzFeed's cat videos. Can't do it. If I have something good to report, I will. I just reported last week that the Keystone XL pipeline permit got revoked. But unfortunately, doing my job as a reporter, I had to just report yesterday that the oil company's blowing it off. So go watch that interview that probably didn't even show up in your feed. I interviewed the chairman of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe in South Dakota, who's now telling me that they're not even listening to the federal judge. TransCanada is going ahead with construction anyway. That is right here on this channel. You probably didn't get it in your feed because FewTube, it's not YouTube, it's FewTube, doesn't notify people when channels like me are live because they're trying to drown out progressive voices. That's why I tell you, put it in your calendar. I'm live every single day, 5 p.m. Eastern. And for the next few weeks, I will be live every single Sunday, noon Eastern time. The first time I went live for the Super Chat Sunday, we raised $5,000, and I was live for 7.5 hours. I don't know how long I'm going this Sunday. I'll go as long as you'll have me. And we'll certainly be talking about this also. But again, this is bigger than Stacey Abrams. It's bigger than Georgia. We live in a rigged electoral system. And make no mistake, folks, if Bernie runs again in 2020, they're going to try to rig it more than they did in 2016. But Democratic candidates rising above it. No. The time to speak out respectfully to the Abrams campaign was months ago when this was starting to become clear. The time for lawsuits was months ago when the purges started becoming clear. The reporting was there. People like Greg Palast was reporting this. But the problem is candidates like Stacey Abrams, who was trying to make history as the first black governor of Georgia, she was listening probably to Democratic Party insiders and consultants saying, stay on message, don't come off like a sore loser, it will turn off voters. No, come off like a fighter. And hey, if you're fighting against a rigged election, if you're fighting against an opponent who's literally tossing out your potential voters, people would actually have respect for you. I'm not knocking Stacey Abrams. I think her speech was graceful and classy. But you don't accept election fraud. You don't accept election theft. Because if we keep accepting this, then what is the point of voting? What is the point of protesting? What is the point of doing journalism? What is the point of even pretending we live in a democracy or a republic? Occupy New Paradigm says we may not win, but we have to fight. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. That's why we have Status Coup. That's why we have a GoFundMe, which I just put in there. We've raised over $20,000 so we could journalistically get out there and expose things. Because of you guys contributing to us, we were able to go to Flint. We just broke a major story in Flint that proved the state of Michigan cooked up the lead data to artificially lower lead levels and declare Flint's lead levels under meeting EPA regulations. We just broke a story proving that ain't true. And as we speak, I can't tell you the full details. There are some very powerful people looking at that and might take action because of our reporting that we were able to do. We were able, Jen and I, to knock on 450 doors because you funded us to be there. It's the only reason. That's why we need the seed money. I kind of know what I'm doing. Jen knows what she's doing. We need the seed money, and I'm not taking shortcuts. I'm not going to try and get sponsorships from special interests. I'm not going to try and get money from Democratic Party insiders and plutocrats or Republican Party plutocrats. I'm taking it from you, even if it takes a while, because obviously our audience isn't, rolling in it. But $5 at a time, $10 at a time, $20 at a time. There's been people that have left. One person left $3,333 in our GoFundMe. To this day, I'll never, ever forget that. Austin says, wars, sick and poor, poison in food, and air and water. It's depopulation, folks, and ethnic cleansing. So, you know what? I think that Stacey Abrams just allowed a criminal to get away with a crime, which is election fraud. And this was more than election fraud. This is the theft of an election. This is the theft of an election. Brian Kemp stole this out in the open. I mean, for God's sakes, after the election, he was putting forward that as Secretary of State, he was going to investigate the Democratic Party for hacking with no evidence. A very Trumpian move. So, spare me the classy speech. I appreciate it. I think it's nice. I know you were trying to make history. I understand it's harder for you as a black woman running. But I believe you owe it to not just Georgia, but this country to fight theft. Because your black people fought and died so that people could vote and their vote actually means something, not be stolen by white, wealthy, greedy criminals like Brian Kemp. I mean, it's not just Georgia, folks. Look at South Florida. In 2016, the supervisor of elections in Broward County literally destroyed the ballots. Destroyed the ballots. A felony. In the race between Tim Canova and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, what happened? Nothing. She still has a job. 200,000 people were purged off the voting rolls during the New York primary. Bernie versus Hillary. What happened? Nothing. The mayor of New York City said, I'm gonna put some money towards election integrity. Please. And I, as a journalist, when I was at the Young Turks, I broke, well, not literally, but I busted my hump going around the country to cover elections. But as a journalist, it's hard to want to cover elections when they're rigged. It's hard to want to cover elections when movements and moments. Stacey Abrams' campaign was a movement. Stacey Abrams' campaign was a moment in time aren't winning or losing based on her ideas, based on whether progressive, she's not my capital P type of progressive, but she was fairly progressive for Georgia. If you're not winning or losing based on your ideas and your policies, we cannot advance as a country. Polish Hammer says, they didn't let me vote in Florida saying I was at the wrong place. Turns out my vote really mattered. The irony. Mr. Black, thanks for the nice word. But this really is an outrage. And it's even more of an outrage that the Democratic Party was a no-show for this fight. Don't tell me that the Democratic Party is the party of the working people when they're not even there to fight for a candidate like Stacey Abrams against election theft. If you could show me where Tom Perez or Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer or any of these people were loud and tried to organize people behind Stacey Abrams against this criminal behavior, we don't have a Democratic Party. We have a party of Wall Street, and they don't want to rock the boat fighting for someone like Stacey Abrams. Jim Bond says they are complicit. I agree. Thank you, Patrick. $2 in the super chat. Reminding you folks, this is a super chat. He says, Patrick says, voting isn't enough because those behind the scenes. Obviously. And by the way, think of how much Stacey Abrams probably actually won. She probably actually won by 5 to 7 points. 340,000 voters, mostly black, were purged off the voter rolls. Purged. Vanished. And she lost by less than 2 points, I think. She would have won by 5 to 7 points. Thank you, Azande X, $5 in the super chat. As a New Yorker, I appreciate the work you and Jen are doing. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Hope you didn't get too cold in the snow yesterday. Mr. Black, Jordan, what motivated you to do this? I'll tell you on Sunday. We're going to do a long, probably an hour-long Q&A. So I'll tell you what motivated me to do this on Sunday. But as a journalist, it's hard for me to go out and cover elections if look at Greg Palast. He did what actual journalists do. He broke major news about American citizens being disenfranchised. There was like a 92-year-old woman that Stacey Abrams mentioned in the speech. 92-year-old woman has been voting ever since black people got the right to vote. She wasn't able to vote. So don't tell me, I don't want to hear about Russia, which I'm going to get to because now they're railroading Julian Assange. I don't want to hear about Russia. I don't want to hear about, Nancy Pelosi. We're going to have a bipartisan exchange of ideas. What did she say? The marketplace of ideas? Fuck your ideas, okay? This election was stolen. There's elections being stolen all over the country. It is a rigged electoral system, and there needs to be laws in place that don't allow secretaries of state, governors, or anyone in office to also simultaneously play a part in who gets to vote and who doesn't. Period. End of story. If not, we're not a democracy. We're not a republic. We're a fucking banana republic. Thank you, OTR Tucker. $5 in the super chat. Cable outlets are saying Abrams acknowledged that Kemp will be proclaimed the winner. What do you expect? What do you expect? As I write in my book, Corporate Con Job, these are not actual journalists. These are public relations professionals with makeup and a microphone. If you want to check out my book, we've released volume 1. We're putting it in paperback. You could hear these rants in written form. Jen, put the link in there. They could become Patreons to that. But, I say it two ways. I thought she was classy in her speech. I'm not attacking her as a person. I give her credit for she ran a good campaign. She honestly, to me, she did make history because she is the rightfully elected governor of Georgia, and she would have been the first governor, the first black governor of Georgia. And other than Brian Kemp, blame the Democratic Party, who didn't show up, I'm talking about Tom Perez, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer. You want to go through the emails? Because I didn't get one email about the voter purges from Tom Perez. But I did get emails from Barack Obama and Terry McAuliffe and Cory Booker and Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris asking me for money. Mitch, CNN won their lawsuit. Your thoughts, Jordan? CNN is awful, but they should have won that lawsuit. I think Jim Acosta is a terrible reporter, but there is something called freedom of press in this country, and Donald Trump is not a dictator, even though he'd like to be. He should have never had his press pass revoked, and freedom of speech and freedom of press is absolute. It's under attack, I could tell you that from firsthand experience, but Jim Acosta of CNN, despite being, I think, a terrible journalist, is a journalist nonetheless, kind of. So he should have not had his press pass taken, and I think the court was right to give it back to him. And I think Trump should be penalized. So that's what I think. I would scream even louder, but my apartment complex gets on me if I rant. That's why we have a GoFundMe. Imagine if we made enough money that I could get a little mini soundproof studio. Oh my God, that would be amazing. We got 225 people watching right now. What if everybody left $5? I can't do the math. That would be pretty good. Our goal is to get to 25,000 by the end of this month. It is a stretch goal. We might make it, we might not. But we want to raise as much money as we can. We're not raising it to go to the casino. We're not raising it to go to the beach. We're raising it to report in the field for you. Because our branding and our slogan, give the microphone back to the people. So, before I move on to another disgrace, anybody have thoughts on what I've said? Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I hot? Am I cold? Lori, I donated last week, and I'm a monthly contributor. Thank you. And by the way, to those who can't contribute, that's okay. Obviously, we all have, our budgets. Feel free, just share the video. Share this video, share the GoFundMe if you can. That would be really helpful. So, when I was coming up in journalism, I looked to Julian Assange, who to me is the essence of what a journalist is. He is somebody who has sacrificed pretty much his whole life, relationships, leisure, health, to get the dirty, corrupt, evil, criminal, and warlike truth out to the world. Not just the American people, the world. So, Rachel Maddow and the corporate media has been pushing their propaganda that, Julian Assange has been drinking Russian vodka with Vladimir Putin, and Julian Assange and WikiLeaks knowingly coordinated with the Russian government to hack Hillary Clinton's emails and hack John Podesta's emails and hack the DNC's emails and distribute them right before the election. The actual proof that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks knowingly coordinated with the Russian government, any proof of that? It could exist. Robert Mueller might have it, but it's not out there yet. And call me old-fashioned, but as a journalist, I like proof before suggesting or claiming that journalists are literally working in coordination with a foreign government to hack elections. I usually like a little something called incontrovertible proof. Incontrovertible proof, like maybe we should have that before we go to war in Iraq. Maybe we should have that before we drone civilians all over the world. Maybe we should have that before we drop bombs on Syria. Something called incontrovertible proof. Edward, I'm not responding to that comment, but you made me smile. So, Julian Assange, who, to me, you want to talk about one of the biggest human rights violations in the world? Julian Assange, for the act of journalism, because I believe WikiLeaks is a journalist, has been holed up in an embassy in London for, Jen, check me on this, I think since 2011. And as we've gone over the last year, he's had his internet taken away. He has not been able to, he used to be able to go outside on the balcony to actually get sun, which all human beings need. He is vitamin D deficient. There has been reports that he is having severe health problems. He is having severe mental health problems, which can be understood. Thank you, Panay. I can never pronounce this guy's name. We just got a $100 contribution on the GoFundMe from Panayotis Damatoboulos. I don't know what that is, but thank you. And by the way, just as a reminder, folks, $100 gets you a Status Quo hat or shirt. Jen is mailing them out this week. She's beginning to mail those out to the early donors this week. So you get a hat or a shirt for $100. You get both a hat and a shirt for $127. So, let me tell you something. If you put me in an embassy for 7 years, since 2012, not likely I'd still be here on Earth, because I probably would have offed myself. That's, I don't want to be dire, but that's excruciating. So they've taken away his internet, they've taken away the outdoors. They basically are trying to make him either kill himself or get into such health failure that he's forced to leave to go to a hospital. So the Justice Department apparently has secretly filed criminal charges against WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, a person familiar with the case said, marking a drastic escalation of the government's years-long battle with him and his anti-secrecy group. The top Justice Department officials told prosecutors over the summer that they could start drafting a complaint against Mr. Assange, current and former law enforcement officials said. The charges come to light late Thursday through an unrelated court filing in which prosecutors inadvertently mentioned them. The court filing was made in error, said blah, 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 blah. This was not the intended name for the filing. Well, that's a big fuck up, let me tell you. Mr. Assange has lived for years in the Ecuadorian embassy, which I just told you. The disclosure came as the special counsel Robert Mueller is investigating links between President Trump's associates and Russia's 2016 election interference. WikiLeaks published thousands of emails that year from Democrats during the presidential race that were stolen by Russian intelligence officers. The hackings were a major part of Moscow's campaign of disruption. Though the legal move against Mr. Assange remained a mystery on Thursday, charges centering on the publication of information of public interest, even if it was obtained from Russian government hackers, would create a precedent with profound implications for press freedom. That is important. Mr. Assange has been in prosecutors' sights for years because of WikiLeaks' publications of thousands of secret government documents, which, by the way, the New York Times has gladly shared what WikiLeaks has reported and distributed. Mr. Barry Pollock, an American lawyer representing Assange, denounced the apparent development. Quote, "The news that criminal charges have apparently been filed against Mr. Assange is even more troubling than the haphazard manner in which that information has been revealed. The government bringing criminal charges against someone for publishing truthful information is a dangerous path for a democracy to take." Well, as I just reported to you, Barry, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a fucking oligarchy, and it's rigged. Let's keep it real. So, what exactly is the Department of Justice suing or filing charges against Julian Assange with? People were ranting on Twitter today. Does anybody have actual evidence that Julian Assange knowingly, or WikiLeaks knowingly, worked with the Russian government to hack the DNC or John Podesta's email and disseminate them? Now, if you want to say Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, once they got those emails, systematically used it in a way to hurt Hillary Clinton, yeah, they did. I mean, they could have released it all at once, but they did it, day by day. I remember because I was going through hundreds at a time when I was at the Young Turks. So, but you know what? It's not a crime for a journalist to be biased. That's not a crime. K-Mac, thanks for the $10. The deep state targets Julian because they know he won't hesitate to release every credible evidence of their corruption. They hate truth tellers. Where's your YouTube channel? I couldn't have said it better myself. So now they're saying because there's text messages that came out between Randy Credico, a radio host, and Roger Stone, a spinster, a propagandist. By the way, Jen made me watch Get Me Roger Stone on Netflix. It'll blow your mind. Roger Stone is single-handedly responsible for 75% of the awful things in America, including super PACs and the lobbying industry. Watch Get Me Roger Stone. It's a great documentary if you have Netflix. But what proof does the Department of Justice or anyone have that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks knowingly, keyword knowingly, worked with Russian government officials or even liaisons to the Russian government? What proof? Because I haven't seen any. Have you seen any? So basically, the people ranting on Twitter and Facebook and calling for Julian Assange to be going to the guillotine are doing so because, oh my God, he released information on your golden empress, Hillary Clinton, that hurt her candidacy. Read the fucking exit polls. I have. WikiLeaks and what they released had very little impact on the 2016 election. You know what had more impact? Bill Clinton signing NAFTA in the 90s and Hillary Clinton cheering him on. You want to know how I know? Because I'm a journalist and I was in the field. Back then, I had TYT's money. Now I'm asking you for money. But I was at these rallies in Ohio and Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. They weren't chanting WikiLeaks. When Trump talked about NAFTA and I'm bringing those jobs back and we're taking it to Goldman Sachs, he had them at NAFTA. Oh, and Hillary Clinton basically created the TPP. So, the exit polls showed that NAFTA, immigration, trade, actually James Comey making his announcement that he was reopening Hillary's thing, that actually played a part. WikiLeaks had as much impact as me or Jimmy Dore. Christopher just donated $100 on the GoFundMe. You guys, I can't thank you enough. I donated because 12 years, need I say more? Long live Muhammad Levy. I think you're talking about climate change. I think you're talking about in 12 years, this planet is going to have irreversible damage. And part of the problem, and part of the thing is, I want to get out in the field and cover the effects of climate change, which are these dirty natural gas pipelines. I want to get out in the field and cover and expose these greedy fucking soulless oil companies. Because let me tell you something. Jen is one of the best researchers we have in journalism. And she's an actual journalist. She knows where the bodies are buried, so don't get on her bad side. That's why I try to be nice to her. Jen knows how to get to these oil people. We know how to expose things. We know how to expose what they're doing. We just need the funding to do it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see where we're at while I'm live. We're at $20,599. Can we get to $21,000 by the end of this live stream? I think we can. I think we can. And by the way, to those of you contributing $100, make sure you email Jordan. Email Jordan at protonmail.com. Email Jordan at protonmail.com so we could get your shirt size or your hat size. If you want to contribute another $27, $127 gets you both. But $100 will get you a shirt or a hat. Email us, email Jordan at protonmail.com. Tell us your size if you want the hat or the shirt, and give us your address. So, I don't really give a shit if Julian Assange released emails about Hillary Clinton. Nobody's arguing whether they were valid emails. And by the way, you want to know something? If you run for public office, don't write things that are going to be incriminating in your emails. And tell your staff not to either. So, I don't care if he released those emails. It's not because I personally don't like Hillary Clinton. I would have covered those emails being released if he did it to Donald Trump. I don't particularly care what his motivation was. I don't care what his motivation was for releasing those emails. Clearly he didn't like Hillary Clinton because he said so. Clearly he was trying to harm Hillary Clinton. You want to say that's unethical? That's a fair argument. Criminal? That's not a crime. That is not a crime. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks has disclosed jarring video that showed our atrocities in places like Iraq, showed our atrocities in places like Abu Ghraib, has showed our criminality and our human rights violations around the world. There should be a statue for Julian Assange. And you want to know something? Argument's sake, let's say Julian Assange's source was not the Russian government, but that source got the information from the Russian government. Who gives a shit? If you watch any CIA thrillers, if you watch any movies, or if you just study up, Jen's read a gazillion books about the CIA. If you watch anything about espionage, most of the time, you don't know where your source's information is going from, and you have to verify yourself if their information is correct. It's very possible that Julian Assange's source for those emails, he had no idea where it came from. But Julian Assange has also said repeatedly and been consistent, I don't care where my source's information comes from. I care, is it right? Is it authentic, and is it credible? WikiLeaks has a 100% credibility rating. They have never released anything that proved to be wrong. So let's call this what it is. This is the United States government trying to silence one of the preeminent whistleblowers in world history. You don't have to like Julian Assange. A lot of people don't like him personally. And guys, I see some people saying you wanna help out in certain ways to status quo. The live chat goes fast, so if you have ideas, if you have things you want to help out with, if you have other things you want to talk about, email jordan@protonmail.com, because Jen might not be seeing them because the live chat is moving very quickly. So I don't give a shit. I don't care. Unless his source was the GRU, the KGB, or Vladimir Putin himself, I don't care. And you shouldn't care. Because it's a media distraction, and it is a way for the corporate media to deflect, and it is a way for the Democratic Party to deflect. I don't know why Trump's the Department of Justice, in theory, works separately of the Trump administration. We do need volunteers. Jen is doing the job of 25 people. Ty could use some help too. And by the way, if you haven't been paying attention, Ty is going live on this channel now too, so check him out Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. He's going 3 days a week right now. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, around 1:30 in the afternoon, East Coast, 10:30 Pacific. So you got some calendar things you got to put in there. I'm live every day at 5 o'clock Eastern. Put it in, so it doesn't matter if they notify you or not, because they ain't gonna. FewTube doesn't notify you when progressives are live. They'll notify you when, like, CNN or the Washington Post release a video. Not me, though. What kind of help do we need? You got an hour? What kind of help? Number one, we need help fundraising. So if you have fundraising experience, that would be good. We need design help because our website needs upgrades. We need research help. We need marketing help. We need social media help. Jen could fill you in more than I can. Jim, I do have an hour. Jim, come back on Sunday. I'm doing a marathon Sunday super chat, and we're going to do a long Q&A, so I will answer whatever questions you have. Email jordan@protonmail.com. But, you know, between the rigged elections in Georgia, prosecuting whistleblowers, Trump yanking press passes, this is a banana republic. And I thought Matt Taibbi said it well on Twitter. Number one, he said, if he didn't actually steal materials himself and only published, and remember, any existing case is likely about pre-2016 behavior, then that would have major ramifications for all journalists. I obviously have no idea what, if any, charges there are in this case, but there has been a worrying trend towards harsh prosecution of leakers in the last decade or so. Hey, by the way, that happened under Barack Obama. President Obama, went after leakers more than any other president before him. Many of the famous cases, Manning, Snowden, involved material that was true and The bar should probably be very high for prosecuting the publication of true things. He also points out, here we go. Somebody said a journalist would weigh the impact of a particular story on the security of our nation before publishing. And a journalist has stories to go through someone to ensure that a damaging story of error in judgment never sees the page. Assange does not do this, just saying. Taibbi said, I agree, and that's why I haven't always liked what they've done over the years, but most of those questions are ethical, not criminal. 100%. And by the way, a journalist would weigh the impact of a particular story on the security of our nation before publishing? How is publishing that Hillary Clinton is corrupt and publishing her emails and publishing John Podesta's email, how is that threatening the security of our nation? It's threatening the security of the oligarchy, but our nation? Seriously? I mean, as far as I know, the charges that they're going to be filing have to do with the 2016 election. If Taibbi is right and they are pre-2016 election, that's even worse. That's even worse. The charges that they're going to be filing that's even worse. What is prosecutable before the 2016 election? K-Mac says this country is borderline feudalistic. I agree. Couldn't agree more. Another reason we're trying to raise money, I wouldn't mind going after people like Matt Taibbi to be partners in status quo and contribute now and then. But, good progressive thought doesn't come cheap. This is going to be bigger than I, folks. Bigger than me, bigger than Ty. Jordanception. It was an accident. Security of our nation, just propaganda. How long will the world live under the boot of U.S. imperialism? As long as we allow it. The Freedom of the Press Foundation came out today talking about how dangerous this is. On Thursday night, Justice Department prosecutors inadvertently published court documents that strongly suggest the Trump administration has secretly filed charges against WikiLeaks publisher Julian Assange. Shortly afterwards, the Washington Post confirmed that charges have indeed been filed against Assange. While it's so far unclear what the charges are, news organizations have speculated they may involve the Espionage Act, the 100-year-old law. On its face, threatens the ability of journalists to do their jobs and could criminalize national security reporting. The espionage has, up until this point, never been used to prosecute a journalist or publisher. Trevor Timm, executive director of the Freedom of the Press Foundation, has issued the following statement. Any charges brought against WikiLeaks for their publishing activities pose a profound and incredibly dangerous threat to press freedom. Whether you like Assange or hate him, the theories used in a potential Espionage Act prosecution would threaten countless reporters at the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the many other news outlets that report on government secrets all the time. Well, I don't know about that. The New York Times, Washington Post haven't exactly been, they regurgitate what the government tells them to say, but really digging into the government, I don't know what they're talking about. While everyone will have to wait and see what the charges detail, it's quite possible core First Amendment principles will be at stake in this case. Couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And by the way, I look at common sense. I look at patterns. Has there ever been any talk that Julian Assange was working or coordinating with other foreign governments to hack or publish anything? Before the 2016 election, before Her Holiness Hillary Clinton, had her emails and had her campaign's emails stolen, was there any evidence, was there anything about Julian Assange or WikiLeaks working with foreign governments to hack things and distribute them? No, because it never happened. Sway Ocean, I have given up on elections. My goal is to become king, a temporary addition above government to straighten things out. That would be great. So when you become king, that means you have endless money and you could give us the rest of the money we need for our GoFundMe, right? Just saying, Sway. And Sway, you have been very generous in our GoFundMe, so thank you, thank you, thank you. That's right, Julian was getting awards. What exactly is the security to America that WikiLeaks released emails showing, by the way, remember what these emails showed, because the corporate media certainly didn't report them. And if I'm keeping it real, while I was at the Young Turks, I don't really think they reported the worst of those emails. They generally reported things that made the media look stupid. Those emails showed that Hillary Clinton's campaign broke super PAC laws by coordinating with the super PAC. Of course, they broke the law, but nothing happened to them because the law doesn't apply to them or powerful people. Those emails showed that she was flip-flopping around in a way that made Mitt Romney look consistent. It showed that her campaign was literally trying to basically market her as a new person, trying to move away from her positions championing the TPP, move away from her Iraq war positions, Showed her campaign coordinating with the Obama administration to bury Bernie Sanders' campaign, coordinating with the sitting president of the United States to bury the Obama campaign. Showed her campaign literally creating the Bernie bro narrative. They created it. Hillary's campaign created the Bernie bro marathon narrative and fed it to the corporate media. Thank you, Jennifer. Donated $25 on the GoFundMe. Keep it coming, folks. Keep it coming. Even $5 makes a big difference. Now we're at 20,624. Thank you. And it's really encouraging. 321 people have contributed. We want to get that number up to 500 as soon as we can. And it's not just for me. It's not just for Ty. It's not just for Jen. It's for you. We're doing this so we could report the truth and get out in the field. As Jen could tell you, I get very, very cabin fever when I'm home without the funds to get out in the field. Getting out and reporting in the field, that's where I live. That's where I get my fire. I mean, those emails also showed Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the DNC were literally rigging the election for Hillary Clinton before she even announced her run. There was extremely valuable information in those emails. And again, hate to tell you, neoliberals or your neoliberal auntie at Thanksgiving dinner table, they did not impact the election at all. Read the exit polls. Thank you, Carne Verde. $5 in the super chat. Here's $5, Jordan. I'll take it. Thank you. And by the way, folks, again, Ty is going to be live from now on, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. He might not like it, but he's going. 1:30 East Coast time. So show up to support him too. He's growing as a journalist in front of our eyes. I don't know what more to say. This is a rigged country. This is a rigged election. This is a rigged Department of Justice. Julian Assange should not. And let me tell you something. If I'm keeping it real, if people like Julian Assange are going to be prosecuted for releasing truth, that spells trouble for people like me who do real journalism. Because this is literally a way. You want to talk about ethnic cleansing in Flint and other places? This is a way to cleanse actual journalists. And there are very, very few journalists left. Ay. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? I think we got one more time. Time for one more story. Kathy, $20 for Julian. I'll let him know. Another $20. Liam, what would it take for you, Matt Taibbi, Jamal Thomas, Jimmy Dore, Abby Barton, etc. to all work together in a symbiotic way? All of you together would be far more effective than each of you alone, in my opinion. Liam, that is one of the best questions I've heard. And it is something that Jen and I talk about all the time, and don't think we haven't reached out to some of those people to try and partner up. Because to me, I think we're, oh my God, I was about to say stronger together. I think the progressive media is stronger, not as individuals, but when we merge. We could still have and do our individual thing. But the fact is, we are stronger together. It is harder for us collectively to be suppressed and censored than it is individually. I'm not naming names, but some of it, frankly, is ego. Some people just want to do their own thing and want to be individuals, and, I ain't knocking it if that's what people want. Some of it is other things that maybe I'll write in a book one day, why they can't partner. But, some of it is extenuating circumstances, shall I say, why certain people can't partner up. But I would love, let me tell you something. If you gave me the option tomorrow of being the face of Status Quo versus bringing on all those people or merging Status Quo with those people, I'd take the latter in a heartbeat. I would take the latter in a heartbeat. So what would it take? Go knock on Jimmy Dore's door, go knock on Abby Martin's door, go knock on Matt Taibbi's door, go knock on Jamal Thomas's door, and I'm in. I'm in, baby. I'm in. And by the way, I don't think we'd have a problem raising the money for all of our various needs together. And by the way, I have went to some of these people and borderline, bowed down to see if they wanted to join. Jordan, are you on Just Inform? No, I don't know what that is. So, I think Abby Martin is one of the premier journalists. I think she's amazing. I would love to one day partner up with her. Everybody knows what I think of Jimmy Dore. He's been great to me, and I think he is one of the preeminent, raging truth tellers of our time. And I think there's a lot of propaganda that goes out there about him. Sorry, Tim. Don't agree with you. Don't agree with you on those two. But yeah, I think it would be great. I think it would be great. Jim says they should be coming to you after the reporting on No Dapple and Flint. Seriously. Well, Jim, unfortunately, there was a little bit of falsehoods sent out there about me, which kind of damaged me for a little bit. So, we're still dealing with that a little bit. But unfortunately, a very coordinated campaign tried to take me down. But unfortunately, I'm one stubborn motherfucker, so they couldn't. But no, I don't think they should be coming to me. I don't care who comes to who, but it would be great to do. Oh, by the way, we're forgetting Lee Camp. Love Lee Camp. Love Lee Camp. So, you know what? I'm gonna save this last story for Sunday Super Chat. Which, by the way, 12 o'clock Eastern. Forget if you're watching football. Forget if you're doing yoga. Be there. 12 o'clock Eastern, Sunday, marathon. First week I did it, I went 7.5 hours. I don't know if I can do that again. It just depends how much money we raise. Oh, Kyle Kalinske too. I really like Kyle Kalinske. I say bring them all in. Jordan, what can Canadians do to help? We'll take Canadian money. I mean, I'm going to keep it real for you folks. This is a money issue. When I was at the Young Turks, I didn't have to worry about money because, I told them where I wanted to go. They said yes or they said no. But I wasn't paying for it. The company was. But, towards the end, they weren't as much. But the bottom line is, I believe, and Jen and I have a firm business plan in place. Our business model is not GoFundMe. Our business model is not, Super Chat's, one part of it. Our business model is to get out in the field, show up where no one else will, show you the truth, expose the truth, fight like hell for change, and ask people to pay a flat amount per month. That's why we're working on our membership section on our website. You could still be a Patreon. We have patreon.com/statusquo, but we're also going to be making a membership section. And you'll get, behind the scenes content and all that good stuff. So we are going to grow this as a membership company. And of course, my live streams will be free and all that stuff. But everybody has priorities. Everybody has a budget. And I humbly ask you to add Status Quo into yours. Because real journalism and real truth is necessary. Because if not, Look at what's going on in Georgia right now. Look at what's going on with Julian Assange. If not, we are going to live in a banana republic, and Trump will be the least of our problems. Sell advertising from Lockheed Martin? Hell no. Jordan, you're not just stubborn, you have incredible tenacity. Thank you. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. You know, people support whoever you support, whether it's Jimmy, whether it's Kyle, whether it's Mike from the Humanist Report. I'm not saying, take your budget away from them to give to me. If you got the funds, we need to create the media that we want to see in the world. We need to create the truth. Not based on falsehoods, but by getting out there in the field. And let me tell you something, because I've done it before and I will do it again. When you get out in the field, when you do old school knocking on doors, oh my God, corrupt people in this country, they're very sloppy in their corruption because they don't expect anyone to look. That's how Jen and I just broke this story in Flint. You think the state of Michigan, who illegally flushed people's water lines in Flint and artificially lowered the lead levels to then pass off that data as Flint's back to normal and we could shut down the water pods in Flint? You think they were expecting me to go Jen and I to go knock on 450 doors? Jen and I have found 35 homes that were illegally tested. And right now, our report is being looked at by some very powerful people. And there might be some actions taken that actually help the people of Flint because of our reporting that you funded. Thank you, Angie, $5 in the super chat. Thank you for your determination, hard work, and journalistic integrity. We're fighting here in Canada right alongside you. Hey, Angie, make room for me because I might come cover some stuff in Canada too. It never ceases to amaze me how sloppy and lazy powerful government officials are, corporations are, and agencies. They don't cover their tracks as well as they should. I will go knock on doors in every community. This is my life. Probably not a good thing, but this is my life. I've chosen to work for the people. Yeah, I need some balance too. I don't want to burn out. Is Jordan on board with the push for Barbara Lee? Hell yeah, I don't want Nancy Pelosi. I like Barbara Lee a lot. Only sitting U.S. congressman that voted against the authorization for military force, AUMF. Jordan, where does your sense of justice come from? Very inspiring. Do you want my whole sob story, Emily? I had a rough childhood. Not as bad as someone like Ty. Like Ty has spoken about his childhood, which was way worse than me. I'm a semi-privileged Jew from Long Island. But I was kind of on the outside looking in as a kid. I didn't have a lot of friends. I felt like I kind of got screwed in some areas. So I was always kind of like had a flavor for being an outcast and injustice. And then I watched Shawshank Redemption, honestly, and I think that's like put a light bulb went off in my head. Ty's going to be like, oh, you're upset when white guys are wrongly thrown in jail. I know that's what he's going to say. Yeah, but I watched Shawshank Redemption, which is based on a true story, and I was just like, how does this happen? And I don't know. I'm just a sucker for injustice, and I do not like greed. I do not like corrupt people. I do not like people benefiting and rising on the backs of vulnerable people. It's something that really grates at me. It's something that keeps me up at night, and it's something that I want to take down. Because I'd have to be a sociopath, by the way, to sit on porches with poison mothers in Flint, to sit in prayer circles with Native Americans having a toxic time bomb rammed through their water and not be affected by that. If you're not affected by that, then you probably need to go see a therapist. Nothing wrong with therapy anyway. Somebody asked, what's my thoughts on Amy Goodman? I love Amy Goodman. I would love to be on Democracy Now!, but they have never responded to me, unfortunately. Big fan of Amy Goodman. So I'll talk a little bit more on Sunday about where the justice comes from. So tune in Sunday, noon Eastern, Super Chat Sunday, GoFundMe Sunday. We'll have a lot of bells and whistles, hopefully. We'll have an interview with Cheyenne River Sioux Chairman Harold Frazier, who just exclusively told me yesterday they don't, TransCanada apparently, they don't give a damn about court orders. They're constructing anyway, even though a federal judge just revoked their permit. You probably didn't see that interview in your YouTube because YouTube doesn't notify people when I do videos. So go check it out after I end this live stream. And by the way, we only showed you part of the interview. There's a whole nother part. So I'll be live Sunday at noon Eastern. If anything happens before then that's breaking news, I'll be live. Again, Ty will be going live from now on, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1:30 Eastern. I go live every single day, 5 p.m. Eastern, so set it to your alerts so you don't have to worry about being notified. I greatly thank you. I implore you, borderline beg of you, to consider something. Every single person has priorities in life. You got kids, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, dogs. I get it. I've spoken with people that are literally choosing between food on the table versus medicine for their kids. If you're one of them, do not give me your money. Do not give us your money. We don't want to worsen anyone's situation. But if you do have a few bucks, we are transparent. You see how much we're raising. You could go see how much we make per month on patreon.com/statusquo. You are seeing what we're using the money because we are already been out in the field twice with this money. We are buying equipment with this money. We are buying extra marketing resources with this money. We have to spend extra money that normally we wouldn't have to on marketing and advertising because we're being suppressed on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you haven't followed Status Quo on Twitter now, go do that at Status Quo. If you haven't liked our Facebook, go like it. Facebook.com/statusquo. If you haven't gone to your neighbors and ranted at them that we need a status quo in this country, go do that and give them the link. I appreciate the 321 people who have contributed. I appreciate you guys for keeping us independent. I appreciate you guys believing in us. I appreciate you guys believing in real journalism. I appreciate you guys not just buying into the bullshit propaganda that corporate media presents you. And most of all, this is not going to be a sprint. This is a journalistic marathon. I'm going to keep fighting for the truth as long as there's air in my lungs, a little beating of my heart. Thank you for watching. And remember, most people are not lacking compassion in this country. I've seen it up close. Most people have no earthly, godly fucking clue what the hell is going on in this country. Peace out.